Hello everyone, this is Lala. I'm going to be talking about War of the Worlds 2, and I was definitely looking forward to speaking about this season. Obviously, I watched it live in 2019, and then I rewatched it for the first time last year, where I definitely had a higher opinion on it than I did live, though I did like it live. And then I did thought that it was a better season than War of the Worlds 1. So entering this rewatch this season, I didn't know if that opinion would stand, and it definitely is the case. I've come to realize that I really like the political seasons of the challenge. So seasons like A Fresh Meat 2, Battle of the Exes 2, and War of the Worlds 2. And we saw that it really wasn't about US versus UK, but it was about the alliances or the crossover alliances on both teams that each side had. And seeing how all of them went back and forth was really interesting. So while the competitiveness of the UK and US really wasn't interesting, it really wasn't about that at all. There was so much drama in the season. A lot of it was definitely personal, but a lot of it was gameplay oriented as well. And this was the season that definitely warranted the 90 episode length, which they started from this season for us, and it warranted it, unlike a lot of the seasons that came after it. It really just had the essence of what a good modern era 4 season could be, but as we all know, for a variety of reasons, things just kind of went off the wagon, and the show was never the same since. But I really do like the location, the scenery, and all of that. One thing that I will say is that the Roku crop is some of the weakest in the challenge history, especially in this era. But it's really the veterans who lift this season up and make it what it is. But otherwise, it's definitely a modern classic season. They are dropped off, I mean the cast, in the middle of the forest, and Faith wants to prove herself, as she is still kind of a rookie, and Jordan knows that if he has another win, he will be seen as one of the best ever. So it's interesting that he didn't see himself this way at this point in his career. It is clear that the season is US versus UK, and Rogan wants to prove himself after being purged right away on Vendettas. Kaylee and Cam agree to work together, and they mention that they both have people on their side. So they clearly pre-gamed, and their friendship from Final Reckoning is still intact. Where Kaylee mentions that she, Joss, and Rogan are planning to get Bear out first, which is very interesting, and they immediately get right into the politics. So it shows that he had a target on his back. Laurel is really feeling Bear as they are talking to one another. Bear is a lot more swole after last season, so he clearly took some substances. The first challenge daily, is trench warfare, where they have to race through the hallway to get the flag on their side again and take it from the other side. Turbo, CT, Ninja, and D come out as reinforcements, as all but some of them, aren't either US or UK, where the winners get to choose which of the two reinforcements that they want on their team. It is kind of chaotic to watch this daily when it comes to like all the camera work and stuff like that, but I do like it and think it's a good one. Of course, Team US wins. Expect this a lot for the season. Laura is enjoying blocking some of the UK rookies, and Ashley still feels like she has something to prove as well, since people see her 2 wins as a fluke. CT is looking forward to playing with the US since he's known most of them for years and all of the vets are there, so he wants to be with them, but he doesn't get chosen. Cam wants CT on their team, Wes wants D on the other side to be a spy for them, and Jordan does not want CT on the team since he essentially calls CT fat. So Ninja and Turbo are chosen for the US, with CT and D going to the UK. It is already foreshadowed that there are too many chiefs and leaders on the US team, which will be a problem. Dee talks about just breaking up with her boyfriend, so she is single and ready to mingle. CT is not happy to be snubbed from the US, and he's going to show them that they made a mistake, since he knows everything about them. One man is going home, and we have the tribunal, where Jordan is chosen, and he chooses West and Laurel. but they get to observe the UK nomination/interrogation, where they will go to nominate a guy, and after speaking to the UK nominee, the tribunal can choose a guy from either team, which is interesting. TJ also announces that no one can be on the tribunal 2 times in a row, which is also very interesting. CT speaks to Nanny, Cara Maria, and Polly about being snubbed, and they tell him that it wasn't them who didn't want him on the team. Georgia mentions that her best friend Nicole is in the house, and they are very tight. Not only just allegiance-wise, but friendship-wise as well. And Laura talks about Cara Maria doing things for fame, so she backed out of their friendship. And Cara Maria mentions that Laura moved to Montana to help her out, but there was a meanness that came with it, so they are definitely not cool. Rogan and Josh are thrilled that they can finally play the game together, and Dee has her eyes on Rogan the stripper. Wes speaks to Josh and Rogan about an agreement where we have a huge montage of the people that Wes has contacted to be game with, and I can't keep track of it all, but he mentions that he is going to protect them. Josh is attracted to Georgia, and he is flirting with her, and I don't care for any of this. Dee and Ninja talk about how they are on separate teams now, but they will still work together despite that. Sean and Big T are from the same show, Shipwrecked, and he mentions that Theo doesn't care to speak to him, and he feels left out of the group, where she essentially feels the same way, which shows their early fate in the season. CT and Josh end up arguing, and as CT is tired of Josh inserting himself in his conversation with Kyle, since he thinks that Josh is being Socrates. Josh calls CT an asshole, which pisses CT off even more, since it is not about you, Josh! They get in one another's face, and CT shoves Josh back onto his bed. Kyle and Laura call it out, with CT really deflecting from being pissed off about not being chosen by the US team, and is deflecting that energy onto Josh. CT is mad because Laura just met Josh, so they aren't friends, and CT wants Josh to get out of his room! Dee and Rogan are talking about him being a stripper, and they talk about how Sean will be the vote, but they all talk about how Bear isn't liked either, so they wouldn't mind him going in either. Wes makes alliances with some of the Brits as he's speaking to Kyle, Theo, Idris, and Bear, but he's doing this as a backup just in case the US team loses. And we have Johnny and Josh watching this, which is not good for Wes, as they are just suspicious of him. Sean is easily nominated by the UK team, and Wes kind of clowns Sean during their talk, where they mention that they don't care about what he wants, but they want him to give them names, though he mentions Bear. Wes then clowns his original show, Shipwrecked, and he mentioned that he didn't use any of those skills here to get to know people. Laurel tells her allies that Sean wants Bear, and Bananas tells Jordan and Laurel that they can't do that, since he's one of the few people that wants Wes out, and to set Wes up by pitching up Rogan to see his reaction. I'm also assuming that Bananas entered the season working with Bear. Jordan and Leroy do exactly that, and Wes shuts the idea down, so they surmise that he is working with the British BFFs, Jogan. Wes tells Joss, who tells Rogan that he's in danger, and Rogan tells Jordan that he is worried that he's in danger, so Jordan immediately knows that Wes leaked all of this, which is definitely sealing his fate more and more. Rogan is begging to not be thrown in, because he can't be sent home first again. Leroy speaks to Cara, Polly, Ashley, and I think Cam that none of them know who's getting nominated, and they have a meeting to clear this up, where this is just continuing the mistrust. The Tribunal nominates Idris, as Wes actually voted for Bear here, this means that Laurel and Jordan voted differently than him, and the two of them are playing pole wrestle, where they have to push, pull, and yank the pole to get it, and the person who gets 2 out of 3 will win. Sean ends up losing to Idris, and he is eliminated. TJ also announces that the elimination winner can choose whether to stay on the team or to turn coach to join the other team. But if you switch, you are stuck there for the entire season. Sean was a fish out of water and a deer in headlights from the one episode he was in, just from the commentary from the others and from what we saw here. I do think he got unnecessarily hazed, but the others weren't lying that he didn't really belong, as he apparently didn't socialize with anyone, according to commentary. Of course, Idris stays on his team, and Jordan calls a team meeting as soon as they come back home. Jordan mentions that they were going to vote in Rogan, but Rogan somehow approached him to save himself, so clearly Wes told him. There was some mention about a burn vote, which was unnecessary, and Wes mentions that Dee told him that Jordan made a deal with Rogan, which changed his vote. Jordan mentions that he switched because he wanted to know who told Rogan, and he mentioned that it was Wes who told him. Technically, Wes told Josh. Sorry, Wes told Joss. That's going to be annoying, confusing the two's names this season. Where Joss told Rogan. CT is eavesdropping on all of this, and the US team is about to explode. But we do have Team US agreeing to not voting one another in. Cam is kind of a loner, and she wants to figure out who she wants to align with this season. Rogan and Dee are charming, and Natalie notices that she's getting a bit too distracted. Laura and Bear are getting closer to one another, and she definitely has a crush on him. And Nanny peeps that Laura is being used by Bear for gameplay purposes, since she is the strongest woman in the house. Jenny is training a bunch of the UK people, and Tula isn't doing well at all. So it is clear that she is a target if the UK loses on Girls' Day. And that is only exemplified with her good friend Sean just leaving. People do notice how strong Jenny is, and Georgia wants to redeem herself after her poor performance last season in the final. The daily is Cryptic Crossbow, where each team starts on their own platform, retrieves a letter in the water, and they then have to solve a four-word puzzle while they have while they have to launch one person into the water who will have to look on another puzzle or work on another puzzle or whatever. It's all a bit confusing, to be honest, so it isn't my favorite. TJ announces that Zahida has left the game due to her grandfather passing away. Obviously, she made the right choice in leaving due to the death of a family member. They clearly edited her out of all the footage this season, as she didn't do any confessionals, and her drama with Georgia didn't show up at all. It is a shame that whenever she does something a little bit interesting, it is edited out, but I'm also fine with her not coming back at this point. To no one's surprise, Team USA wins the daily, and Wes is very sick after the daily. Cam volunteers to be the speaker, where no one really chose her, but she just decided, it's gonna be me! And she then chooses Ashley and Polly to join here. Polly didn't want to be in this one, since it makes him vulnerable for the guys' elimination, but Cam always has a method to her madness, which Ashley does realize, and she's not trying to sabotage Polly at all. Ninja, Jordan, and Kara are talking about how either Georgia or Jenny needs to go, since they are the strongest UK women. Cara Maria trusts Cam's madness, and Tori and Zach think that it's very weird that Cam chose herself to be a leader, and Tori thinks that Cam is overrated, essentially, and they are weirded out by it. Cam speaks to Polly about how she only feels comfortable with him, so it is why she chose him to be in the tribunal. And she really wants to force herself into an alliance with Carmaria and Polly. And the two of them, Cam and Polly, are essentially the leaders of what would be the majority alliance this season, but the edit doesn't really capture it, but we'll get more into this later. And I think it's due to Cam not really getting too involved in the drama, and she kind of uses Carmaria as a shield. Georgia tells Tula that she is getting voted in since she does not want the latter to get blindsided, where pretty much everyone is voting for her over Nicole, and Georgia mentions that it's because she's her friend, so Nicole should stay. Tula speaks to Esther about how it is definitely either her or Esther going in instead of Nicole, which is BS because Nicole and Jenny are also rookies. Obviously, Jenny is very strong, so it makes sense not to touch her, but Nicole should definitely be in consideration. Esther complains about this to Dee and Kaylee, and the two women do think that it is odd, since they were not included in this so-called plan. Kaylee is laughing about this, since the rookies from last season are so overconfident due to the performance there, where she's gonna make them work this season. Kaylee reports all this to Cam, and both of them are weirded out about this. Kaylee is also one of the main political people on the season, and the fact that the two countries are aligned mainly due to Katie and Cam just shows this. She's probably the third most important person in this large alliance, where they agree that Georgia feels that she's untouchable. Cam confronts Georgia about this, and she thinks that it is BS because she never said that she is untouchable, though Cam said that her entire team will make the choice about who to throw in. Georgia is crying to Nicole as she's doubting herself about whether she actually did say it, only to realize that she could be set up. Anyways, Team UK votes in Tula, where she mentions that she is passionate about this, and she's putting in her all. Kaylee calls out the fact that the two other rookies, i.e. Nicole and Jenny, should be considered, as it's not just Esther and Tula, as she doesn't think that Nicole should get a pass due to being Georgia's friend. And I'm wondering if she was kind of hinting at some sort of racial bias or racial lines. I don't know if that's what she was thinking, or if that ever came into consideration in reality. but we don't know about that. Cam, Polly, and Ashley notice the four people running the deliberation, and Tula mentions Georgia, CT, and Kyle. So we do get a fight that involves Faith, Theo, Bear, and Kyle, but they're not actually really showing us what happened. It is 3 a.m. and the UK people are shouting obnoxiously while Bear and Theo enter the room obnoxiously yelling. Faith tells them to be quiet, but they blow her off and kind of tell her to fuck off, essentially. When they are going to sleep, or they're sleeping at 5:45 a.m., she gets pot and pans to wake them up since they fuck with her sleep, so she's going to fuck with theirs. She says that if they do it again, she will do it again, and Kyle is screaming at Faith because he thinks that she's being obnoxious since she woke all of them up. Faith tells Bear that he did his antics on purpose and everyone is just annoyed as hell with this. West comes back from the hospital and he's healthy, though Dee realizes that West does not have as much of a power hold on the game as he portrayed it to be to her. Team UK asks who they want to send in, where Team US asks who they want to send in, where Jenny, Georgia, and Dee are mentioned, and it's clear that some people are protecting others from the UK based on who they are aligned with. It is announced that Faith quits the game while they make it to the elimination. I can't believe Faith gave up a second chance in this game over a fight with Bear, Theo, and Kyle. Apparently, she only banged the pots twice, but they edited it to make it look like she did it in an exaggerated way and prolonged it, and they also didn't show Theo yelling at her. And she also got what West caught illness-wise, but it was also revealed that she was pregnant while the season was filming. Some people also mentioned that she was looking for a reason to quit before doing any days. Overall, it's definitely the best that she left when she did. Anyways, Polly, Cam, and Ashley decide to sit in Georgia, where the two women compete in Light the Fuse elimination, where they have to push a heavy barrel that has a light, and they have to light up their specific fuse above them. It is a very close elimination between the two of them, and everyone from each team are rooting for their opponent, where it is really split. But Georgia does pull it out, winning over Tula, and she of course stays on her team. Tula really didn't do a whole lot during her time on the season, as she really wasn't notable, though she had a nice, sweet, unlikable personality. I don't know if it was enough to come back, but based on solely watching the season, I wouldn't have expected her to be one of the most prominent era 4 women, though I know that it was due to her being an alternate who ended up sneaking on 1 or 2 of the seasons after this, but it worked out for her. Georgia is happy after elimination, and the lines are definitely drawn now. Team UK has a meeting where they mention that they can't root for anyone. Team US has a meeting where they mention that they can't root for anyone, and Josh is called out for blatantly rooting for Georgia when they wanted to send her home, and Josh thinks that they are being hypocritical, since they are doing the same thing with Tua. Everyone is agreeing yet again to be Team USA over everything else, but a lot of people aren't really buying this. Josh agrees to be the speaker for the next round, and will take out the UK's strongest man. And we also see Rogan and Josh plotting about how Bear and Theo are on their own, so they are on opposing sides of the UK team. Laura and Bear are playing footsies on top of a table, which is just gross as hell, and we see them making out in the washroom, where they agree to not tell anyone about it. Leroy is speaking to Ashley about how she needs to politic how he needs to politic since he has relied too much on bananas for many of his past seasons, and Laura is called out for hanging out with Bear, Theo, and Georgia all the time. Team UK has a meeting where there's a lot of tension between the four men. Bear wants to be a speaker, and Rogan is not here for that at all, and the UK team does decide that Idris would be the speaker if they win this challenge. Bear is pissed off that he was not chosen as a leader, and he calls out Rogan for it, where he isn't even turning up at this point in time. The two are arguing, and Rogan thinks Bear is just embarrassing himself, really. Paddle Wheel Puzzle is the daily where they have to remember the 4-digit codes, and they have to take out the pieces that are attached to the codes that they have to break, and then use the pulse to create the US or the UK flag. I think it's an okay daily, but definitely got a bit too messy at times. Team UK seemingly wins the challenge, but they are called out for cheating as they pulled the bars out without unlocking or undoing the lock. So due to that, USA wins. Josh chooses Zach and Laurel to be a part of the tribunal, and Cam, Natalie, and Ashley are worried about how the tribunal will go out of their way to protect Bear and will probably send in Idris, so they're waiting to see what happens. Team UK has their deliberation where Dee and Bear are going at it, and Bear tries to throw Idris under the bus. Theo tries to mention Roken's Vendetta's performance, but Bear is easily nominated here. Bear mentions to the tribunal that he trained so hard and also took enhancements, but he didn't mention that part out loud, so he wants to go against the toughest, and Laura mentions that there is a quote-unquote danger that needs to be handled. Clearly this danger is Wes. Josh does not want to target Theo, despite it being what his team wants. It's just showing how full of shit Josh is. And Wes is talking to the group about how Theo is the best player, where Josh mentions that he didn't say that he would target their best man. Which, BS. The team realizes that Josh is full of shit, and several others knew that Josh was supposed to throw in Theo, so Josh picks a fight with Wes and actually calls him out as well, since he is supposed to pull the trigger, and this isn't Big Brother. Cam also mentioned that Theo was supposed to be their target. Josh doesn't want to be controlled, and Wes wants the same energy to be kept this time around. Laurel is laying down with something on her face. I think it's like a towel or something, and she's pretending to sleep. So when Josh leaves, Wes mentions that the team doesn't need Josh, and he is expendable, but Bear is probably going to just lose anyways. Laurel uses this to speak to Josh, and they agree to throw in Wes, where they are thrilled about this, and Josh is literally spinning her around and lifting her up. They mention that there's already a war, but it needs to be a blindside. Theo asks Kyle why Bear was voted in over Idris, and Kyle mentions that it's a majority rules thing. Rogan and Theo are going at it, where Theo threatens to slap Rogan, and he can't even run. Clearly in reference to Vendettas and him getting purged, where Rogan mentions that was a year and a half ago, and he trained like hell, and Theo brags about his performance in the final last season. He calls Rogan a rookie and a cunt. Josh stands up, but obviously he isn't going to buck up to Theo. Dee gets involved, Theo tells Dee to shut up, and Rogan decides to defend Dee, threatening to get physical. This will most likely be the only time Rogan defends Dee, so enjoy it while it lasts. Team UK meets up to vote in Theo, and Bananas mentions that the team is not a team, and it's obvious who's working with who. Josh mentions what he was told yesterday and calls out Wes, and Bananas is egging Josh on. Laurel tells Johnny the plan, and he is giddy about it, since sending Wes home is more important than winning the final to him. Polly is speaking to Josh to calm him down, and he is telling Josh to just ignore Wes. Zach is also in this conversation as well, and Josh talks about how his genuine friendship with Polly is. And remember, he mentioned this last season, so it's a continuation. And Josh wants to be loyal, seemingly. Theo and Bear hope that they are not going in against one another in the elimination, and Bear is nominated to go in, where he mentions that he wants to face Wes, and it's clear that Bear was told that Wes was getting sent in beforehand, and Wes mentions that he's a winner and can kick his ass. Since we do see Laura and Josh voting in Wes, and Laura and Josh vote in Wes, and Zach is actually very shocked. Polly feels betrayed by this. Remember this for later. And the elimination is Firing Squad, where a cannonball is shooting a ball, and they have to wrestle it from one another. Wes is completely blindsided by being sent in, and he is still sick. It was a good elimination, and Bear does beat Wes, settling their feud from last season, though I don't really recall them interacting next season, so I think this might be the last of it. And of course, Bear sticks with the UK team. Wes definitely got too messy with his blatant pre-gaming and overstretching himself with some of the newer castmates, where he was caught. The thing was, he was still loyal to Team US, but I guess he was the boy who cried wolf this season. It sucks that he was sick, but we've seen enough early flame match for him before, so while he was at boring here, it really wasn't anything new either. Kyle is talking to someone, it might have been Laura, but I don't remember who exactly, about how Cara, Maria, Polly, Cam, Ashley, and Ninja are working together. Kyle admits in the confessional that he's making it up, though it could be true, and he's kind of right about this. CT is playing neutral in the Cold War, since the US team are going to target one another now. Cam and Leroy are pissed off about this with the West move, and Polly tells Josh that they got to him emotionally, where he would have let him take Wes out later in the game. Sorry, I'm reading this with me. Polly thinks that Josh made an emotional decision, and they got to his emotions, where Polly would have let Josh take Wes out later on in the game, so this wasn't necessary. Though in the confessional, which I'm assuming was recorded after they eventually fell out, Polly is shitting the hell out of him. Where Josh is definitely playing emotionally, and he says that Josh didn't make a good move, though Josh is claiming that he's playing both sides. He really isn't playing both sides. He's kind of just latching on to one side. But even still, Polly is trying to neutralize the situation with Josh, though he could have popped off. Carmaria is pissed off, and Ninja also doesn't like this, and they're tired of Josh and Laurel at this moment. Bear is liking all the women right now, but we see him and Laura hanging out at the pool, though Georgia is annoyed while watching this. Josh is telling Dee that he likes Georgia, but she's not over Bear, and Dee does give him some good advice. We get to the daily, which is Relic Runner, where one team has to get the relics from one end to the other without dropping it, while the other team is doing anything to stop them from getting the relics across. With spraying water, throwing orbs, slingshotting balls, etc. I really do like this daily, and Leroy admits that Johnny told him that he's throwing the challenge to gain control of the team, and we also learn that Laura is also throwing the challenge as well, and she's intentionally blocking Carmaria out of all people. People are starting to realize what is happening. Ashley is pissed off for Banana sabotaging her, and Team UK wins the daily. Polly is pissed off. Nanny calls him annoying. He tells her to shut the hell up. She tells him to shut the fuck up. They're getting on one another's faces. They call one another some bitches, and she tells him that he is next. So, with this comment, I'm assuming that Nanny also knew about the plan and said that Polly would go home after this round. And we also see Ashley and Bananas arguing, where she mentions how she's rich and has a million, so she doesn't care, and Bananas is playing plausible deniability. So the UK is arguing about who's going to go in the tribunal, and it's a complete clusterfuck. CT chooses to vote himself down, where the two sides are voting either Kyle or Dee, and Carmaria calls out CT for playing neutral, so the two of them go back and forth, though he knows that she's telling the truth, and he chooses to vote in Dee, since he knows that Kyle is targeting Carmaria. So, I also wonder if Kyle knew about this plan as well, with the challenge throwing, and I'm assuming that he did. Dee chooses Georgia and Idris to be in the tribunal. Bananas' plan is to target one of Cam, Cara Maria, Ninja, and Ashley, where the other side will take control of the game. Laurel has her notepad regarding her strategy and how she sees things, and she's speaking to Zach about it, where he is siding with her, Jordan, Tori, for being the strongest one on the team. Ashley is worried about being targeted, where her, Kara, Ninja, Cam, and Kaylee are talking about who out of them will be targeted. Laurel tells Ashley that if Ashley votes for who she tells her to, Ashley will be going in, or else it will be Ashley going in. So they're voting Ninja, and she tells Ninja that, Ashley is leaning towards that way for this vote. The nomination deliberation is a complete mess. While Carmaria and Laura go at it, Carmaria calls her out for being sabotaged by Laura, and she had no reason to throw Wes in last round. Laura mentions that she heard Josh and Wes arguing, and after Josh left, Wes mentions that he would send home everyone not working with him. I think she's twisting this part. Laura mentions that she heard Josh and Wes arguing after Josh left. Okay, I already said that part. Laurel calls out the other side for being in an alliance, and she points them all out, and Cam mentions that she doesn't talk to these people. Polly gets involved, where he goes at it with Laura, and they are both cutting one another off, and Laura mentions that Wes got smashed, and she isn't going to wait to be killed off, so the two sides are going back and forth, and Laura's just so melodramatic, and it really made for good TV with this episode. Natalie ends up being voted in, which she is shocked by, and despite Laurel getting a lot of votes, and Jordan mentioned that Ninja is a bad runner and a shitty swimmer, so that's his rationale. So Ninja is of course pissed off, and Bananas mentions that they are all pretty much blowing up, where Kai mentions that they don't care about Wes, and Laurel tells Ninja to sit down, since she was the weakest in the daily, and she tells the tribunal to give her Laurel. Though she could choose the easy choice of Nanny. Dee notices that Georgia is protecting Laurel, despite knowing Ninja Laurel, so Dee notices that Georgia is working with the other side here. Laurel is ranting in the room, and Cam calls her out for thinking that she was in a pregame alliance. Laurel says yes she does, and Cam says that her information doesn't work on her and it's incorrect, and her facts are incorrect. Laurel tells Cam that she's digging herself a hole, and she's doing like a shovel movement to indicate that, and Banana says that Cam spoke with Polly and Cart before the season. She denies it, but if she did, who cares? Cara Maria is being consoled by Polly, and she's crying her ass out, while Josh doesn't trust Cara Maria, since he thinks that she's manipulating Polly. And this is kind of some of the rhetoric that Devon was stating last season. So I find that interesting here, and that's how Josh sees it. They recognize that they are targets, and Polly is willing to play dirty now, instead of just relying on the challenges. And I guess with the way Cam answered that last question, confirms it to Bananas and Laurel regarding this alliance. Georgia and Josh trash talk Kara at the club, but she asks Bear if he fucked Laurel yet, and he says no. Laurel knows that she is a target, but she has no problem going in 3 eliminations to get out Ninja, Cam, and Cara Maria. Bananas is campaigning to save Laura and to get at Cara Maria. Bear and Georgia continue flirting as they are cooking food in the kitchen, where they do end up hooking up, where Laura sees them fooling around and she's just over it. Georgia feels bad and tells Josh about it, and Bear is claiming that he's not with Georgia again. Georgia is pitching for Cara Maria to go in, Katie pitches for Tori, but they're not agreeing on this one. Laura ends up getting thrown in, despite Georgia voting for Cara Maria, where they complete and branch out, where they have to attach 21 branches to the top of the tree, and whomever wings it first wins. This moment is an utter classic, and I do like the elimination where Ninja sees that it is her real house, but Laurel gets the post up and the bell rings, where it is announced that she won. But Ninja tells Laurel that she missed a haul, and Ninja gets it in, where Laurel is sent home for cheating. Apparently, she and TJ argued about this, which they didn't show in the actual episode, but they showed on like some sort of special years afterwards. Seeing Laurel do that awkward dance as she was going down from her victory was just cringe and hilarious at the same time, and flicking people off as well. Especially seeing how she was smacked back into reality with the truth. To be fair, this should have been a reset, and I'm sure Laurel brought more drama into the season, but this moment is just very iconic. Obviously, from a competitive point of view, this is Laurel's worst season on the show, and she was booted really early here, but she was entertaining as hell, causing USA to self-destruct, and her antics on her final episode was just brilliant TV, but a part of me thinks that she would have been a bit more interesting, or she could have been more tiring had she lasted longer in the season. I don't really know which way I'm leaning towards that. The showmanship with Bear was gross, but I'm glad that they didn't delve too much into it, and I think her taking breaks make you miss her and what she has to offer to the show. Of course, the Bananas, Jordan, Leroy, Tori, Nanny side isn't happy, despite their obnoxious celebration moments ago, while the Polly, Ashley, Kara, Cam, Ninja side of the house are thrilled, despite their sadness moments earlier, but Zach and Josh are in the middle. Though, when you look at it, they're really not in the middle. Banana speaks to Jenny and Thea about how he is on thin ice with his team, and his alliance took a blow, where he mentioned that Kara absorbs the identity of her partners, which is honestly kinda true, and Polly wants to be him, where Cara Maria walks across to ask him if he's going to throw the challenge tomorrow, kind of in like a poking, jabbing way. Kara and Cam are thrilled, but they need to finish what was started when it comes to the war on their team. Polly mentions to a few people that Johnny is still here and he's going to handle it. Josh speaks to Tori, Nanny, and Zach about how they need to get together, and Bananas is wondering what is happening, where he wants the right people to be in the tribunal, and he knows that Polly is targeting him. But Josh believes Polly since they are real-life friends. Josh says that he would be the speaker, and Polly enters the room. Josh says that he wants to be the speaker, and Polly says that it really just isn't happening, because he can clearly tell that they're going to manipulate Josh. The entire US side end up in the room to have a meeting. Josh mentions that he isn't being manipulated. Team UK is literally cheering as this destruction takes place. Polly asks Bananas to apologize for throwing the last mission, and he won't send Bananas in, and Bananas denies doing such thing. Louis is trying to be the peacemaker, and Cara Maria mentions that they agreed to this on day one, but Johnny wants it to be about the challenge, and about him. And Johnny yells that, "He is the challenge! I am the challenge!" Polly shakes Johnny and Josh's hands that he won't put anyone on their team in if he's the speaker, though Bananas really doesn't believe it. CT is trying to get UK together, where he wants Bear and Georgia to focus. We move on to the daily hook, where they have to race off a platform to hook the hook on a zipline where they go down, ride it for as long as they can before going into the water, swimming through some obstacle course in the fastest time. Ninja is swimming poorly, and Zach is losing his mind, where Polly is defending her, and the two of them are starting to go at it, i.e. Zach and Ninja, and Zach will definitely remember this for the rest of the season, and she ends up swimming the wrong way. Zach calls her out for her performance when she comes back, and he wonders if she is throwing it, and she doesn't appreciate being bladed. Anyways, the daily is pretty solid, and Jordan is complaining about how Carmen Maria doesn't know how to swim after all of the challenges that she did. And nothing has changed as of season 40, which took place 5 years after this. Jordan is also not impressed with Turbo swimming, and he thinks that he is overrated. And a few people kind of commented on this as well. Anyways, the US team ends up winning, though this one was very close. Polly selects Carmen Maria and Jordan to be a part of the tribunal, and Josh does not trust Carmen Maria at all. Jordan is hoping for the best, but definitely expecting the worst, and he's mentioning how Laurel should have stayed over Ninja, and Neo is also hoping for the best. Theo's 7-minute monologue is being made fun of by the edit as he's campaigning for his case to his team, and Theo is easily nominated, which is led by Rogan, who is still not over their beef. The two of them go back and forth, and Theo is one of their best members, so it is dumb to go after him. I definitely have that mindset when it comes to this issue, and Rogan does admit that it is personal more than strategic, but at least he's being self-aware. Theo asks the tribunal if they know who they're putting in, and they haven't discussed it yet, but he offers CT and Rogan up as options. Jordan wants to nominate him against a strong player, and Jordan notices how silent Kamari is, so he realizes that Bananas is definitely going to be thrown in. Cal is seething after the interrogation, and he mentions how idiotic it was to send in one of their strongest members, and Bear is also pissed off. CT gets called out, and he tells Theo that he hasn't done shit to him, and Theo thinks that he is untouchable, and he isn't the enemy, so handle it with Rogan. And of course, Theo kind of pipes down when CT responds. Rogan strips on D and even shows his ass, and Zach gives a fake apology to Ninja to keep the peace, though we know that this doesn't last. Bananas mentions that if he goes into elimination and wins, he will turn coach to the other team. Cara Maria tells Josh that she doesn't trust Bananas. Josh is trying to defend him, and she calls him out for throwing Wes out of the game for his personal reasons. So Cara Maria is throwing in Johnny, which is confirmed, since he has screwed her over many times throughout many of the years and seasons that they've done together, and she's starting to have a meltdown. Tori and Jordan then pitch to Polly about keeping Bananas in, since they see him as more logical compared to him and Cara Maria, and Rogan is worried about potentially being sent in. Polly and Cara Maria vote in Bananas to face Theo, and I don't know why they thought that Polly would ever vote differently from his girlfriend. Josh is very pissed off, though I don't think he has the rights to be, and Jordan is shocked, as well as some other people. Anyways, the elimination is Die For Me, where they're in a cage and they have to roll through. The cage gets detonators from each landmine and match all 7 of them. This elimination would be a pain in the ass to do as a tall-ish person, but Theo does end up being Bananas. Polly is hyping himself up as the best player, which doesn't age well, and Theo stays loyal to the UK. Bananas did cause a mess this season with encouraging Laura and Josh to flip on the team, also pre-gaming while also accusing Wes of doing the same thing, but I did enjoy him getting booted early here for the 2nd season in a row. It continues the quote-unquote Sarah's curse, which does end here as we all know, and it gives some of the newer players it gives them room to make names for themselves without him overtaking the screen time as per usual. Of course, a lot of people are not pleased with Polly and Cara Maria, and we have Josh ranting to Cal about how he isn't friends with Polly anymore, since he shook his hand to not target Bananas. Though Josh was more than fine with his friend's girlfriend going home, and also lied about sending a US member when he sent in Wes, when that wasn't a part of the plan, agreed with the group. Josh saw Polly as the big brother, and Polly mentions to people like Turbo and the others that he was going to get rid of the traitors, which is what he did. Josh is literally yelling from the other side of the room while Polly is speaking that Polly shook his hand and he lied. Polly cuts his conversation to mention that Josh also lied to him and he needs to shut his mouth. Josh then approaches him and gets in his face, saying that he doesn't know who he's talking to. Polly essentially says the same thing and points at Josh, and he shouldn't stand over him. That's what he's saying. Polly mentions in his confessional that this is the challenge, not the Big Brother. Though Polly is also from Big Brother, and he joined both shows a season before Josh did. So I never got his point in reference when it comes to this. Polly at this point is just hoping that Josh will go away, but Josh continues yelling and standing above him, hovering over him, getting more hype due to the audience putting that battery in his back. Polly then gets up and he has a bunch of bass in his voice and yelling off the top of his lungs that he will kill him. and they are separated by security, where I've never seen Polly yell this much. But we all knew that Polly wasn't going to do anything since he only got hyped and acting like he was going to throw the pool table over when security got around. So he was just acting up. Though I do think he was genuinely pissed. And I mentioned all throughout these last few seasons and even in my Big Brother 18 review that Polly does not take betrayal well at all. So his emotions here really come from hurt rather than anything else. Or at least that's just what I've noticed. So you have people mentioning that Josh saw him as a friend and Polly saw him as a number, and it's ironic that people like Theo and Tori are in the same room with Bear and Nanny, i.e. Casey's future fiance, sitting with Josh, though some of those same people or the allies would complain about what Josh did on Battle of the Eras, though he did the same thing here, but they were fine with it here because it suited their narrative. Liu hosts the team meeting for the US where he says that West, Laura, and Bananas are gone now, so they shouldn't be bringing them up and they need to target the other team, where they agree to send in the other team no matter what, while the tribunal is agreed to be Nani, Liu, and Ninja. They also mention that they will tell the entire team who they will nominate before it is done. Dee tells Nani that she is enough with Roken, and we all know that this isn't going to end well, and she also seemingly knows that it isn't going to end well. Bear is flirting with Kaylee and Georgia is seeing it, which pisses her off, so she wants to target Kaylee now, though I'm pretty sure that there are some other reasons just due to the two of them not getting along at this point. Jenny, Nicole, and Dee tell her to get over him, and Georgia now wants to get with Josh, so she kisses him, solely to piss off Bear, and I agree with T regarding it just being very gross. The daily is Explosive Decision, which is a trivia daily, and they will be strapped to a chair, and if they get the answer wrong, they will be strapped into the stratosphere, or pulled up to the stratosphere. It's a pretty standard daily, but Team US wins, with Nani, Luya, and Ninja being in the tribunal, which is already pre-arranged, as I discussed. Jenny knows that she is a target, and Tori tells Jenny to get her campaign and gives her pointers, where Nicole thinks that Esther is going to be nominated over her, since the numbers are on her side and she sees Esther as the weakest. Kyle calls out Esther for being a follower, and she calls out Nicole for doing poorly in the daily, so the two of them are arguing, and Esther mentions that the only difference is that she's being protected by Georgia, Bear, and Theo. They all call one another out for being two sides of the house when it comes to the UK team. Georgia mentions that Joss and Rogan are best friends, but it ends up with Nicole being voted in through a split vote. Rogan admits in the confessional that Nicole is a bit better than Esther, but she isn't in his alliance, and he's sticking with his line, so that's why she's in. Nicole campaigns to the tribunal to get Esther in, and she would turn coat, but Ninja mentions that sending in Jenny or Georgia once Nicole leaves, though Nani mentions that Jenny will most likely win if she's thrown in, so it'll be a missed shot. Nani doesn't feel like she should ask her team for their opinions, showing that she's being selfish here as well, though I do get her point with nominating Jenny, since Jenny would win and it would be pointless, so I understand her with that. Nani does not think that the team is a happy team, and they're only acting like it because they aren't in the tribunal. And she's referring to the party side of the house. And she tells CT that the guys on her team will send anyway the first chance she gets. So the entitlement with Nani is just goring here. Nani calls out Leroy about falling for the BS, and he mentions that Nani is safe, and that Cam, Ashley, and Kara is pulling a wool over their eyes. So she knows that they'll throw it as soon as they can, and Leroy is trying to save himself. And it's very ironic because Nani has thrown Leroy under the bus a few times, and he never has this energy, or had this energy when she did that to him. Dee tells Georgia that it isn't about the weakest and the strongest, so Nicole isn't the weakest, but she's not in the alliance. Georgia mentions that while Dee thinks Roken is her number one, he was telling Nicole things differently, and Dee tells Georgia that it should have been her thrown in. Or it could have been her thrown in, not should, but it could have been Georgia thrown in. So she's essentially telling Georgia that she should be grateful. I don't know why she would think that she'd be fine with her best friend in real life getting sent in. Dee cries to Turbo and Ninja, so they all made up after that mess last season, since she knows that her insecurities are telling her the truth about Rogan. And she tells Rogan what is told, and Rogan says that he wouldn't have told that to two women that he doesn't like. Cam and Ninja are talking about Nani not wanting to throw in Jenny, and how Leeway needs to be, or Leeway might need to be convinced. The US team has a meeting, Ninja pitches Jenny, and Toy mentions that it doesn't make sense, and it's the same thing with Nani and Josh seeing this as well. Nani and Cam are arguing, and Cam mentions that Nani is playing numbers. And Polly is also mentioning this in the confessional. And Nani mentions that sending in Jenny doesn't benefit her. And Nani is chipping at Cam's decision, and Cam mentions that she made her move for the team. We get to the elimination where Jenny is voted in, and Nany votes in Esther here, and they compete in Trapped, where they have to jump from top to bottom in a glass rectangle to get a ball and to memorize the puzzle at the bottom and then reenact it once they get back to the top. I do think it's a pretty good elimination, and Jenny absolutely washes Nicole here, whereas she of course stays on the UK team. Nicole was really forgettable on the season. The only content that she got was that she's BFFs with Georgia, and she felt entitled due to that. She kind of had energy with Esther because she was the second worst instead of the worst, which Esther was, but that's really it. Shockingly to no one, she is a one and done. Nany is glad that she did not vote in Jenny, and she's salty that Leroy didn't vote with her. So she is feeling like she's losing all of her friends, except for Turbo, but we know as the years will go on, that will change. Bear, Georgia, Josh, and Nany are doing face masks, and Josh makes a comment about Bear flirting with his woman, and I don't want to give any more time to this. Jordan is annoyed that people do not clean up after themselves, and the bugs being attracted to it due to all this is really getting on his nerves, and he's trying really hard not to snap. And honestly, I agree with him about the lack of cleanliness, and it is definitely one of my pet peeves. And he's complaining to Tori, though people like Cara Maria and Cam are tired of his attitude. Tori mentions that Jordan in the challenge house is insufferable, where he's calmer when he is back home. And we'll definitely see more of this next season. And Tori talks about her soul contract with Jordan to Ashley, and Ashley doesn't really see it at all. Turbo and CT are talking about their predicament, and Turbo doesn't believe his team in their meetings, and CT is playing the middle on the UK, where they aren't listening to one another. Or really him, to be honest. The daily is Resilience River 1, where they have to build a pyramid puzzle on a raft. They have to carry the pyramid through the swamp, carry a relic to put on the pyramid, and place two of them on a platform. I really do like this daily, as it has teamwork, and it's really aesthetically pleasing to look at. The UK team is not listening to CT, who is one of the best puzzle makers on the show's history, so it's dumb of them to not listen to him. And we do see Zach snapping at Ninja, since she's not helping them carrying anything, and she's just giving pointless instructions, where he ends up splashing her obnoxiously with the water, and I do think that was way too far for him to do. Jordan is also yelling at her to shut the fuck up, instead of just working, or just standing there, actually, since she isn't really helping them, and Turbo is getting annoyed at Jordan. Ashley is also telling Ninja that she wasn't helping at all, so she's siding with Zach and Jordan on this. Turbo kicked the relic several times when it's on the table, and Jordan tells him not to do that, since it is a hassle for production and they need to go vote for who's on the tribunal. Turbo shouts Jordan, and he's going to push him back, but Tori gets involved, and Turbo has to be held back by several of the production members and the cast a few times, though of course Polly is siding with Turbo here, so Turbo is definitely in the wrong in this situation. They are winning, and they are still arguing, where Turbo now conveniently wants to be in the tribunal, and Jordan immediately shuts that down, and I don't blame him at all. Zach is the speaker, where he chooses Turbo and Tori, so Turbo is in the minority no matter what in this vote, and Josh is trying to calm Turbo down, who wants to target Jordan no matter what. Kyle wants the two of them to hit one another so they can both be DQ'd, and CT speaks to Rogan and D, where CT tells them that Rogan might go into elimination with this tribunal. CT knows that the UK team is split between Team Jocelyn, Rogan, and Theo and Bear, and when they get to the deliberation, it is between Rogan and Bear, but it ends up with Bear being voted in, though CT and Idris is called out for not voting, and Kyle is over his former vendetta, Rogan not proving himself in the elimination floor. CT mentions that T and Idris need to be offered deals since they'll be cut in the final round before the final, no matter who they side with, since either group are a group of friends within that group. Bear tells the tribunal that he wants to face Rogan, though he mentions that he will turn coat if he wins the elimination, and Tori is insistent on one of Rogan or Josh going in. Turbo, for some reason, wants to go in himself to take out Jordan, and Zack and Tori immediately shut it down and think that it's utterly ridiculous. Rogan is clowned for losing his identity whenever his name is thrown out there to be a nominee, and Nany is trying to calm Turbo down regarding Jordan, as she is trying to defend him as well, and explaining that no one is perfect. Jordan has to be coached into apologizing to Turbo, and Jordan really doesn't want to do it, though Tori is telling him to do it, and we do see Jordan do that. Bear and Georgia are debating about whether he should turn coat or not if he wins the elimination, and they are cuddling. Kyle and CT tell Joss that it will be Roken instead of any of them in the elimination, or at least that's the assumption. The tribunal does choose to send in Joss because they know that he is stronger than Roken and Bear can take him out if he took out Wes. The two of them play in Fallout, where they have to run around a bunch of walls, and it's essentially a different version of Hard Roll. And it's actually closer than expected, but of course Joss pulls it out over Bear, and of course stays on the UK team. Bear was still pretty messy with his hookups with Laura and Georgia, though he would do a horrible act on her. And he has the feud with Joss and Roken, though he wasn't as argumentative here as he was last season. It was clear that he juiced up and trained a lot for this season, and he did hold his own competitively, but he left at the right time in my opinion, before he got too annoying, though he has one more season, despite it seeming like he would be on every season possible after this. Supposedly there's a scandal with him and someone not an adult that happened around this time, but they ignored it. But this would just be one of the many problematic things that he did that would eventually cause him to no longer be on the show. CT mentions that the House is not US versus UK, but it is two allies, and Polly speaks to his allies about how Josh was rooting for Bear to win and join the US team. Or at least that's what he thinks Josh wanted. Kara narrates her alliance is herself, Polly, Cam, Ninja, Ashley, Dee, Kaylee, Joss, Roken, and Esther, where the other side of the house is Tori, Jordan, Josh, Zach, Nanny, sometimes Leo, or at least at this point, Georgia, Theo, and Jenny. Polly is happy to be with Roken and Joss, and that they need to win challenges, so it's clear that the UK alliance is trimming the fat on their team on purpose, i.e. voting people in who are not in their alliance. Cal knows that Joss and Roken can't get too much power, and he says to CT that they might be voted in now, and CT knows that Cal is a floater and isn't a good one. Dee talks about how this season feels differently from last season, and it's a lot more clicky this season, where Esther should go in if they lose, but she is on their side. We get to the daily crate expectations, where they have to get 125 crates, where they sprint to get them, build towers with those crates, and then get 12 relics as well. They are officially in the halfway point of the season, where the losing team has to send home one man and one woman, since it is a double elimination. I found it to be a good daily, and to no one's surprise, Team US wins this one. Cal and Roken are shading one another for them being weak in the confessional, and it's a very calling the kettle black situation. The tribunal is Ashley, Polly, and Carmaria, where she wants to scapegoat the couple for whatever decision is made. So Esther is going to vote or volunteer herself to go into elimination, since she knows that she's the weakest woman on the team, though Team US wants to keep Esther around for the exact same reason. Cam, Ashley, and Ninja is plotting to threaten Dee that if she votes in Esther, they'll get Roken sent in, since sending Idris and Esther out will weaken their alliance. And also the US team, to be honest. Dee mentions that their team is tired of losing and they are weakened, where Dee mentions that she will save Idris, but Esther is insistent on going in, so she's kind of giving and taking here. I'm trying to find a median. Dee tells this to Roken, and he says that he'll do what he can with this. CT feels bad about sending in Idris, but they know that Cal is the only other option, where Cal and Roken have a cold war going on. They are vendettas, remember? So Roken is fine sending in Cal, since they aren't aligned with one another. Esther volunteers herself. Kara is annoyed that Dee didn't do anything to save her, though there wasn't anything for Dee to do. And Cal is sent into elimination, where he's going back and forth with Roken, since they apparently shook hands at some point, and Roken needs to go into elimination, where Cal is blindsided and is betrayed by Joss specifically. Esther wants to go against Georgia, and she's really confident, and Cal wants to go against either Roken, Idris, or Joss. And Cal says that he will turn cold, though he mentions that he is lying in his confessional. Kara mentions the plan to Ashley and Polly, and Dee failed to live up to the plan. So Dee is in consideration to go into elimination with Roken, and Georgia and Theo are the other contenders. Cal gets into Joss's face, yells at him, and points at him about how he is a piece of shit and he wants to hit him, and Joss is embarrassed about sending in his friend, though Joss didn't give Cal the reaction he wanted, so this kind of goes nowhere. Kyle then calls Rogan a pussy since he was on his hands and knees begging and pleading to not go in, and Rogan doesn't give him the reaction he wanted either. Kyle, Maria, and Ninja speak to Dee about protecting Esther, but she couldn't do anything since Esther was insistent on sending herself in, and Dee is kind of getting tag teamed by Kara and Ashley. After they leave, Dee and Ninja hash it out, and Cal is trying to stir the pot even more, where he and Dee are arguing about it since he wants to fire her up, since Rogan is going to drop her, or at least that's what he's telling her, and she's going to be friendless. Back to Ninja and Dee, the latter mentions that Ninja did not have her back at all, since she has to work on her team and work with her team, and she does not like her feelings being manipulated, where 5 people are going after her, and she defended Ninja last season, though that was Dee's fault for getting into arguments and situations that had absolutely nothing to do with her. But Ninja mentioned that she warned Dee that this would happen if she didn't protect Esther. Georgia is tired of Kara's cult, and she mentions that it's really just the alliteration of it, since she knows that it really isn't Kara running things. And the other side is talking about how Dee's game got blown up. Ninja and Dee have another conversation about what happened. Cal and Esther are nominated, and the tribunal sends in Georgia and Theo. And Theo is really hurt that Kara especially voted him, where they are playing Running Riot, where they have to grab relics that corresponds with the weight on the board, and they have to place the relics in order to get the win. I really do like this elimination since it involved math, physicality, endurance, and a lot of memorization. So it's just a combination of many different facets. Georgia and Theo do end up beating Esther and Cal. We have Cal telling Georgia and Theo to switch, which neither one of them end up doing, and Cal ends the season stating that he will target Rogan and Joss whenever they're on a season together, but he would never have the opportunity with Joss since this is just the last season, and I don't remember too much about their interactions on Total Madness. Him and Rogan. Esther had a fun and likable personality, but she really just wasn't meant for the challenge. But she isn't the worst one-season wonder, and was definitely a layup, though she performed better than expected on the elimination. I did like her calling out Theo's blatant anti-blackness on social media, though, and misogynoir. Kyle had his most forgettable season here, despite him making it to the halfway mark. Kara and Polly made a pact to not mention or talk about him throughout the season, and it definitely made Kyle irrelevant story-wise, but he did have his humorous and messy moments, despite this being his most forgettable season, and arguably his worst performing season too. UK has a team meeting where Theo and Georgia are pleading their case about how they need to start uniting, or else they will lose, and how Polly and Carmaria isn't going to help Joss, Rogan, and Kaylee to win anymore, though Kaylee is tired of it and tired of this since they are working with US members as well, so it's all crap for her. She has a point with that, and Rogan is making moves with Polly, and it will get him the win, so they will all agree to stay loyal, and I guess it works out for Rogan. Maria and Tori are sizing one another up by wrestling each other, and Tori wants to make a point where she can beat Kara, where we see Jordan and Polly doing the same thing with one another. Polly actually wants the two power couples to work together, and Jordan really isn't interested in it, since he wants Maria out. Kara mentions that she thinks that Jordan and Tori want this to be their season, and they are jealous of herself and Polly, so there's kind of like couples war going on, and I think they're basing this based off of which couple's liked and which couple is disliked. Dee quit her job to do the season, and she wants to start her own business, so she's taking this very seriously. Cam and Leroy are reuniting with one another after not being on good terms last season, and CT kind of helps them out with their couples therapy, so the house is rooting for the two of them, and they're joking about their sex life as well, which I found to be pretty funny. We see Dee overheating, actually, where Nani is trying to comfort her, and Georgia also sees her on the floor, where the producers are taking care of Dee, but this is causing her team to see Dee as pretty weak once this get back to Rogan, since Dee started passing out from overheating herself as she was going on a run. Dee ends up going to the hospital to get checked out. The daily is under siege, where there are 2 puzzles in a container, where one side will rise and they have to solve each puzzle. I find this to be a pretty solid enough daily, where we have Jordan thinking that Torbo is weak here, and CT is yelling at his team. To no one's surprise, Team USA wins the daily, where Josh, Ninja, and Leroy are in the tribunal here. Leroy and Cam are getting closer again, and they're getting pretty physically intimate, where they could be playing with fire here. So the nomination ceremony takes place, where Idris is thrown into elimination by his team because he's not doing well in the challenges despite him being aligned with the majority. Idris wants to take out Thea, and the tribunal mentions that they want to protect Idris, where Joss and Theo are options, where Ninja wants to protect Joss, and Josh wants to protect Theo, where Liu is in the middle, and both of them bring up some good points here. CT, Wilkin, and Joss are joking about Idris being Ted Bundy, where they will be stabbed by him in his sleep, and Idris has a weird conversation with them about waking the tiger or lying or whatever. So everyone is outside doing their own thing, and Theo wants to provoke Polly, who is in his own zone working out. He tells Polly to keep pretending, and they taunt one another about not seeing one another in the elimination as Polly approaches him, and then they talk about how they can both handle one another in a fight. Polly mentions that Theo will buckle on his knees against him in an elimination and a fight. Theo wants some of Polly's brave pills, and he calls Polly a pussy for not facing Kyle in the sand last season, and calls him out for not handling the man who was fucking Cara Maria, his girlfriend. Polly mentions that he took Cara from Kyle, and he can fuck Theo's girl too, though it's clear that Polly wants to fuck Theo, not whatever girl Theo has, but we'll get more into that. Cara Maria is confused about all of this, but she is going to side with Polly, even though she likes Theo. And Polly mentions that he and her can fuck Theo's girlfriend, so he's trying to kind of backpedal here. Polly literally hovers over Theo's face as Theo is sitting by the pool, just states that he will see him any day, and I'm pretty sure he either licks, spit on, or does both to Theo, and it looks like he's trying to lick his lips. He's trying to lick Theo's lips and spit on it as well. Theo is chanting, tasty, tasty, tasty. Polly is chanting a bunch of motherfuckers to him. Cara Maria is trying to separate them, though she kind of gives up after a while. Theo stands up, Polly calls him a bitch boy, then Polly literally kneels on his tippy toes because he's like a foot shorter than Theo to kiss Theo on the lips. Okay. Notice how Cara Maria didn't even react whatsoever, so she clearly knew about his sexuality well before he came out publicly, and many people are chanting for them to kiss again. The commentary from Georgia and Ashley from the scene is just glorious. Polly is chanting about how he's so little and Theo's so big and strong. I think the issue with Polly and Theo, even up until today in season 40, is that Polly is really, really attracted to Theo, but he doesn't know how to handle his attraction to Theo, since when you look at their back and forth throughout the years, it's really not hatred, so I think the source is this weird attraction here. Polly tells the cast that he has them dead to rights, and Jordan throws all types of shade at Polly in his confessional as Polly acts like he's some god, and Polly mentions that he's targeting Georgia because she's good at eliminations, and she wants him to stop fucking her in the eliminations, and it's just weird. Jordan speaks to Zach about their options, which would be to throw in Cara Maria and Ninja against one another, or to go against Idris himself and turncoat, as he and Tori have apparently discussed turncoating at this point, though Zach thinks that it is a long shot. Team US has a meeting about the nominees. Josh is pitching for Rogan and Joss, and Polly doesn't want them in, where Ashley mentions that Theo is still sore from his last elimination, so might as well send him in there to potentially get rid of him. But Josh is pushing for Joss to go in. Theo is sent into elimination, so Leroy sides with Cam and Polly here. And officially, Josh is deciding to pick a fight with Ninja, claiming that she's making Polly's decision, and Josh is just bitching about not getting his way, and Polly calls Josh a bitch. I don't blame Polly for being annoyed this time. Josh is even attacking Leroy for his vote unprompted, and Leroy calls Josh out for his hypocrisy. Good for Leroy. Polly calls Josh out for being a crybaby big brother bitch. Here's where I kind of have to interject here. Polly also cries a lot, and he's also from Big Brother, so this is just a fail. But we see Polly and Josh go back and forth. Josh mentions that his bank account is bigger than Polly's, which is true. Break free is the elimination where they have to hold onto a rope and swing onto the wall to crack it through, and then they have to solve a puzzle. I really do enjoy the elimination, and the Cabot Alliance is trying to help Idris through the elimination, but he's just clueless. Theo ends up beating Idris and decides to stay on UK again, which really just wasn't a smart move. Idris was really boring on the show. He's very muscular, but he didn't perform well in the challenges outside of his one elimination. He was a part of the powerful alliance, but even they were tired of him, and he offered absolutely nothing from an entertainment point of view. Idris is now more known for begging to come back under every challenge, tweet, or social media post than anything he actually did on the show. They get back home from the elimination, and Jordan throws some jabs about Cara Maria not being good enough, where he's talking to Cam about developing better cardio, since she was talking to Leeway about working out, and he says something about how they aren't working smart when it comes to their cardio, and I believe he also mentioned Turbo in this as well. Cara Maria lists her stats to Jordan about how he feels like everyone needs to prove themselves to him, and she throws in Turbo, where she mentions that Jordan mentions that he doesn't give a fuck what Turbo did last season, as he thinks Turbo sucks this season, and he doesn't give a fuck about Cara's prior stance. But he's talking about what they did or are doing specifically in this season. Polly is trying to mediate between the two of them, but he doesn't want Jordan to go after his girlfriend, rightfully so. Ashley reports this to Turbo about what Jordan said about him tiring out after a few challenges, and Leroy is stopping the couples from going at it. So Ashley is being messy as hell, which she's admitting to, and she wants him to stay loyal. He enters the room, and Leroy is trying to calm the situation down, where Turbo goes after Jordan, shitting on him. Jordan mentions that he said what he said. Ashley is trying to get him to remember what he said, where he and Tori get very defensive. Turbo wants to face him in an elimination. The two of them are pointing their fingers at one another, where Jordan mentions that the others are trying to rile them up so they can have a problem. So he's saying that the other people are trying to create a problem between the two of them. Cara and Tori argue, where she says that they could just go into elimination against one another and handle it there. And Jordan and Tori are seeing through Ashley's tactics. Ashley and Cara Maria high-five one another afterwards, and Nani is confused about why people hate Jordan, and CT calls out Jordan for provoking people and then playing innocent, or at least he says that in the confessional. Nani is annoyed that Ashley is throwing the pot, and she's trying to calm Turbo down, but she's very pissed off herself, saying that they're using him to try to take out Jordan. Jordan and Turbo are outside, and Turbo wants Jordan to shake his hand to go down in elimination. Jordan says that it's idiotic, and Turbo isn't the best because he won one season. Jordan imitates Turbo walk. You walk this, which is pretty funny. And Turbo demands it. Jordan, you will not copy my walk. You will not copy my walk. You will not copy my walk. And a bunch of people from security have to hold him back, and it's just a clusterfuck. So the argument continues with Turbo being held back by a bunch of security, and he had to be sent to the hotel. Nani and Ashley end up arguing, since Nani blames Ashley for provoking this to happen, where Ashley mentions that she instigated the first one, but not the second one, which is true. Apparently, Turbo was warned by production before this with a fight pertaining Jordan, and Nani and Zach is also ranting about Polly's team, since they don't have the numbers, and she's blaming the entire alliance for using Turbo to send Jordan home. Nani is crying, and Zach is genuinely worried for her. Leroy and that side of the house are talking about how Jordan would rather get beat up than lose in elimination to Turbo, where Cam suggests that Tori and Jordan need to be targeted next, whether they win or lose. And it's interesting how they blame this on Polly and Cara Maria, though Cam is the one that suggested it first, or at least on the episodes, and Leroy is officially deciding to join Polly and Cam's alliance. TJ announces that Turbo is sent home for breaking another warning and getting physical with production. And Jordan doesn't think losing Turbo hurts them at all, especially in a final. Turbo wasn't given a lot of screen time this season, and I think it's because he really wasn't involved in the politics in a very political season, and he wasn't in danger, but his instability, insanity, and aggression was shown a few times this season, and he really didn't have the humor of last season to make up for it. His huge meltdown wasn't necessary at all, and he needs to handle himself better, but I will say that he did bring the drama. He and Jordan would have faced one another. He and Jordan have yet to face one another as I am recording this, since while they were both on Ride or Dies, the machinations caused them to not meet one another on that season. Anyways, the daily is incoming, where they have to get a bomb in the mud to bring it back to them, and it's essentially a mud wrestling daily, which is always great. Team UK actually wins this one, and I don't think this one was thrown to them at all, and Georgia feels like no one from their side is going home. How unfortunate. And the UK is arguing about it, where Theo, Georgia, and Jenny try to choose a tribunal, but the other alliance essentially refuses it. Kaylee is the speaker, where she chooses Jenny and Joss. Rogan, Cara Maria, and Polly talk about how Tori is going into elimination and she wants to go against Ninja, since she was the first out on the challenge. Nani is eavesdropping and Liwei wants to speak to her. Liwei mentions that he's not voting for Ninja and they are arguing about their vote, where she's mad that he isn't voting with her, but their almost 10-year friendship is straining, where she mentions that they don't care about her. He says that he isn't voting her in, but she mentions that he isn't helping her either. One side of the UK mentions that Ninja needs to be voted in, and the other side is talking about Nani being weak, where Liwei votes in Tori, and the couple mention that it is a dumb move. Nani is getting annoyed with Liwei's choice, and he doesn't get why she's upset. So she says fuck you to him. He stands up to yell at her, and you can tell there's pain in his voice because he saved her from going in when she's still a weak competitor. Jordan mentions that Ninja and Kara are the weakest on the team, and Nani mentions that Kara needs to take a break from the challenge, where the two women are going at it. Despite all of the bickering, Tori is voted into the elimination. Tori is rightfully pissed off, where she tells the tribunal that she's going to turn coat if she wins the elimination, and she swears on her family's life, though she mentions that she wants to take out Ashley. Katie mentions that if Tori joins their team, she's not going to join their side, but the Theo Georgia side of the house. Jordan and Liwei argue as they are walking back, and Zach also thinks that Liwei is making a dumb decision. Josh mentions that Liwei is the weakest guy, and Liwei just laughs at it, since Josh is really the weakest. Jordan mentions that Nani is the weakest. Sorry, no. I think Jordan said that Nani is not the weakest, and while he thinks Tori is strong, Cara and Ashley are two-time champs, and they are strong. Jordan and Liwei continue arguing when they're in the house, and Liwei mentions when was the last time Nani worked out. So they start arguing, and Nani is crying about this in the confessional. And Zach mentions that they lost Tori whether she wins the elimination or goes home. He says that Nani isn't the weakest, but Ninja is the weakest, and Zach's consistent at least. Lyra and Cam mentioned that she was the only woman to finish the hardest final last season, and Zach says that she sucks in a team environment, which Ashley also stated a few episodes earlier. And Leroy mentioned that Zach died in the final as well, clearly referring to free agents. Leroy tells Jordan to face him in a physical elimination and he will get washed. Josh makes some comment and he tells Josh that this isn't Big Brother and insinuates that he's the weakest out of all of them. Tori is giving Georgia campaigning points to mention just to get Ashley in, and Nani and Zach is in the room. Cam's cult has a plan where she, Cara Maria, Leroy, and Katie talk about how Georgia is going to get sent in, so they can kill the other alliance, so Tori will have no numbers once they turn cult. Kaylee is down with the plan, but Josh is in unknown. The UK has a meeting where Georgia does what she is told, and everyone seemingly agrees on Ashley, though Kaylee is going to blindside Georgia. And Kaylee speaks to Josh about sending Georgia in, where he isn't sure about the plan. Katie and Josh blindside Georgia in the elimination, and Jenny is absolutely shocked by this choice. Georgia and Theo are really fired up, and all three of them are trying to convince Josh to not do this. This is a complete mess. But Georgia is thrown in, and she mentions that Kaylee is so scared, and Kaylee is going to get purged again. And Jenny tells them that they're not going to win the final. Blockbuster is the elimination where they are on two sides of the wall and they have to push the pieces, where whomever pushes the most pieces out of 3 rounds will win, and they cannot fall off their platform either. I really do like this elimination, and it's the best version of the ones that we have seen of this on the show. Tori does push the elimination out over Georgia, and she turned coach to the UK team. Georgia definitely had a rough go this season, as she was thrown in several eliminations, had a feud with Katie, and she struggled in a more political season, compared to the more easygoing but competitive element of last season. She was a very good underdog, but she was caught up in some sort of blackface scandal from a picture taking place years earlier, where a kid apparently put that paint on her face, and Polly was definitely pushing this picture so Georgia could get punished. Then she had her intercourse with Bear posted on OnlyFans on his account without her consent, which led to her filing a lawsuit against him, where he did end up going to jail. With all that taking place, she has no interest in returning to the show, and while I am sad about it and I think it's a shame, I do get it. Jordan and Tori know that the house is against them, and Theo is really pissed off about George's elimination, where he and Jenny are snapping at Rogan, and it looks like both of them are packing up to leave, or at least that's what it looks like. Jenny and Theo continue their tirade into the house since they need to be able to win a final, and they're tired of fighting for a team that isn't fighting for them. And that's fair, since they are in a lose-lose position. Rogan stands firm in his position, and Katie reassures Josh that they made the right move. Jordan and Tori are talking to Rogan, and he doesn't fuck with them at all, so their position hasn't changed whatsoever. Polly is complaining about the flipping to Josh, acting like they are going to save the UK team. Cam speaks to her former showman Theo to ask him why he feels this way, and she does seem concerned for him. It's a nice sort of conclusion going back to their showmans last season, seeing that they're still friendly, where she reminds him how strong he is. Josh and Nanny think that it's dumb that Josh wants to win a final with Kaylee instead of Georgia, which is fair. I completely agree with them on this, and the both of them are reassuring one another since they know that they're going to be targeted soon. We get to the daily temple wall traverse, where there are walls high up in the air, and they have to place certain tires on the wall, where they have to place certain places on the wall where the other team is using cranes of some sort to keep the wall separated and moving. I actually really do enjoy this daily, and the Brits perform really poorly here. The US win the daily, and the Arkeeper who is in the tribunal, with Josh trying to interject. Polly is the speaker, and he chooses Zach and Kara, where the other side is hoping that they focus on performance and not alliances. Tori is ranting to Nanny about Polly and Cara Maria manipulating the UK, and they are a bunch of idiots. And this is mainly after Nanny not even trying in the challenge, and Nanny realizes that she is alone out of the women on her team. Theo is easily thrown into elimination, and Rogan admits that he's playing a scared game, so at least he's self-aware with that, and Theo threatens to either switch to the US team or sabotage the team if he makes it to the final with them. Rogan is talking about needing redemption from his season, so this is a clear winner's edit, and he speaks to Jenny and Tori about how he needs, or how he wants to go to the final with the two of them, and then mentions something about how he wants to trim the fat, i.e. the Gauntlet 3. And Josh is rambling about Cara Maria and Polly, where he is glad that he has Zach and Annie, where he calls them the Nerd Herd, and he clearly uses a Big Brother 6 reference, and he won't be someone who watched Big Brother 6, so he knows what he's doing with that statement here, and referencing it to another Big Brother player, where Kara's crew is talking about either sending in Jordan or Josh. Nanny calls Jenna, so they have a video call, which was nice, and we have Tori and Jordan talking about their relationship, where we know that he is going to propose to her. Cara Maria and Josh have it out, where she is asking direct questions. He calls her manipulative, and he is tired of her cutting him off, where she wants him gone. Zach burns his vote on Josh, since he knows that his vote has no power here, and Josh has no balls, where Polly and Cara Maria vote in Jordan to face Theo. The elimination is under the hammer, where they have to smash the hammers with sledgehammers, which will break the lights right below it, and this is a similar elimination that Jordan won against Zach on Battle of the Exes 2. Cara Maria also knew this, where Zach mentions what I just described, so he states that they gave Jordan the UK with this elimination, which is fair. Jordan essentially washes Theo in the elimination, and Cara Maria and Polly's plan bit them in the ass. Jordan turncoats to the UK and proposes to Tori, where Cara Maria throws some shade since she's alleging that Tori's going to pay for the ring when Jordan sabotages the team, and even Polly is bewildered by her comment, thinking that it's too far. Theo was explosive in the season, in a good way. He, of course, was a huge underdog in this season, winning 3 eliminations, had his arguments with people like Rogan, Cal, and whatever he has with Polly, which will continue on to season 40. It's really a shame that he became blind in one eye, where it caused him to be off the show for several years. He was one of the few from War of the Worlds who came back in recent years, and he hasn't been anywhere near as fiery competitively or in the drama department. Though, when I'm just watching the show, he is likable. But when I'm hearing about the stuff that he did that didn't make it on the episodes or social media, it just reminds me why I don't like him. Everyone in the house is celebrating Tori and Jordan's engagement. Everyone but Cara Maria, who is reading a book in her bed, as she talks about how this is all just very staged. Tori mentions that Jordan gave her the engagement ring that her mother had, which was really nice and sweet. Jordan and Zach think that their team is going to lose. Sorry, I think it's Josh and Zach in this conversation, thinking that their team's going to lose since they lost two good team players, and they definitely have a point there. Tori and Polly are talking about how they actually really get along, the two of them, and it's a shame that their partners don't like one another. And Cam talks to Leroy about how Nanny hates her, and we've seen this dynamic before, with a man having a girlfriend that his female friend doesn't like. There's a situation like this just last season. There are some others in the earlier seasons, and there might be some more in the future coming up. But it all leads to some interesting drama. Nanny believes that Cam hurt her or hates her, and Cam thinks that Nanny takes more from Leroy than she gives to him. Sorry, Nanny thinks that Cam hurts Leroy, and Cam doesn't know who Leroy will choose between the two women if it comes down to it. Dee and Rogan are talking about how close they are to the final, and she mentions that she would melt down with him. Rogan is speaking to Joss and Polly that while he likes Dee, she is the weakest player in the game and she is not ready for the final, so he wants to send Dee in. And it's said that this isn't the first time that he would do this to her, since she passed out through running in the heat, and the UK Alliance is throwing the challenge to do it. They should have done this before Georgia was sent home, but I would definitely sacrifice Dee over Jenny, so I do get where Rogan is coming from with this. The daily is Escape to Freedom, where they have to go on a 120-foot obstacle on a path that's moving in the water, but someone from the opposite team will knock them off too. I really do like this daily, and we see CT and Zach doing rock, paper, scissors, since CT tells him that he's throwing it, which is hilarious to watch. Jordan is livid that CT is throwing the challenge, and he picks a fight with it, or he tries to, but CT just doesn't give a fuck. And then this gets back to the rest of the house, where Dee is asking Rogan if he knew about the plan, and he kind of confirms it. Of course, the US wins, where the tribunal is Cam, Leroy, and Nanny, and I'm assuming that Cam, who was the speaker, did this to appease Leroy. But she also wants to keep all of her women safe. Tori is confused about why the challenge was thrown, and she thinks that it will be due to them wanting her gone, which really isn't the case, but I get why she feels that way, due to what just happened. Tori is voted into the elimination, and it's literally done within 10 seconds, and Jenny thinks that it's dumb as hell. Leroy and Cam is trying to get Nanny for them to say name, and she really isn't for it, since the two of them already know who they're going to choose, and Nanny thinks that he only joined with Polly because of Cam. And Cam is getting annoyed with Nanny and her attitude, which I don't blame Cam for. Leroy is talking about he is 11 seasons in and he just wants a win, and Jordan mentions that he made a switch, and they could have run as a team, or run this as a team, but he chose a bunch of layups, and Nanny decides to pop in and tell him to not be stupid. Cam intervenes since she sees that Jordan, Nanny, and Josh are attacking Leroy, so she's gonna defend her man. And Cam mentions that Nanny should be thankful that she kept her safe, where they don't respect Leroy at all, and she's getting fired up, where he wants Cam to calm down. He mentions that he wants Nanny in the final, though Cam mentions that she turned on him. Josh also calls out Leroy for turning on his friends, when Josh did literally the same thing. Nanny is eating her noodles, where Kara and Cam are justifying why Cam did what she did, so Nanny wants to confront them, and Leroy is trying to defuse the situation. Cam mentions that he didn't need to explain himself too much about his game to her entourage, i.e. Nanny's entourage, where they're all going at it, and Cam's alliance does have Leroy's back here. Nanny rants about how no one has her back, and Cam mentions that Nanny didn't need to confront her in front of a group of people, or confronts Leroy as well. Leroy shuts it down, and Nanny rants about Cam, where she feels like people are turning against her. CT speaks to the group about Nanny trying to guilt Leroy, and Cam does feel bad, so she wants to make sure Leroy feels good, so she does apologize. Polly, Rogan, and Josh talk about getting Dee in, where Polly mentions that he will try to get Leroy to put her in there, and he relates this to Leroy, where CT also joins the conversation. CT wants Leroy to blindside the woman on his team, and CT feels like the alliance is one-sided, but Leroy wants him and Polly to let their allies know first, which is obviously going to work out so well. Leroy says this to Cam, Ninja, and Ashley, where Cam does not appreciate being threatened like this and being manipulated into doing their dirty work. They should not have told Ninja this, since obviously she's going to stop it, and Polly warned Roken and Josh about this essentially. Dee confronts Polly in front of the woman, and CT mentions that he will speak to Dee about the plan, which he does. Of course, Dee is not going to react well to this, since her ride or dies are throwing her under the bus, where she does confront Rogan and Josh. Rogan mentions that she has never run a final before, and he doesn't think she's ready for it, where she mentions that she has the endurance. Dee, of course, has a crying meltdown and is confronted by Ninja, and this ends up happening next season as well, where Ashley does confront her as well, since she was underestimated as well and won twice. We get to the elimination, which is a proper hall brawl, and it seems like the drama accomplished nothing, since Jenny is thrown into the elimination, though Nany throws her votes to Katie. It is a hall brawl, and everyone expects Jenny to wash Tori. Just look at them. But she's not used to contact sports, so Tori does end up beating her here, which shocks people. Jenny is definitely the rookie of the season, and she was very stacked. It's interesting that I am doing this while 40 is airing, and it's clear that while Jenny is good at the challenges, the political element is definitely not her strongest suit. She is a nice person, and she got a bit angry near the end, but she didn't have the biggest personality. But out of all the rookies this season, she's definitely the one that deserved to come back, and I'm glad that she did. Kaylee is assured that her alliance will get her to the end, and Josh is talking about how his side was forced together. He wasn't forced to do shit. He flipped thinking the other side was greener and it would gain him more popularity. Tori is thrilled that she won over Jenny, and she and Jordan are looking forward to winning the season to start the rest of their lives together. UK has a meeting where they need to reunite their team, especially with the whole Dee plan that took place, and Dee is very upset because her close friends threw her under the bus. Rogan justifies himself despite not having the balls to go through with the move according to him, and Dee mentions that she was in the tribunal 5 times last season, she kicked ass last season, and she even outlasted CT on the season, and Josh mentions that she needs to improve on her swimming. CT and Josh are still justifying their point of view, and this conversation is really going nowhere. We have the two couples of Polly and Carmaria and Leora and Cam cuddling together where they all want to win out of the pair, and the former are really cheering for the latter, which is really nice. We get to the daily, which is puzzling swim where they're going to be in pairs, and they have to get to a platform where they have to swim from the platform, swim 150 feet to get a key, and then they have to unsolve the puzzle. The slowest swimming pair will end up getting purged from the game. Polly and Carmaria, Kaylee and Josh, Leroy and Cam, Zach and Ashley, Josh and Nany are paired together with Ninja sitting out because there are more US people, which Zach calls out because the other women are sacrificed by her sitting out because she's automatically immune. Jordan and Tori are together where Rogan and CT are literally fighting to not get paired with Dee, which she sees, but CT is allowed to swim by himself and Rogan pairs with Dee. Dee is obviously offended because she literally just saw him fighting to not be paired up with her, and him acting like he's a righteous person to be paired with her is just really lame. Polly is annoyed with Carmaria's poor swimming, so he does agree with Jordan on that, and Leroy and Cam struggle hardcore. Polly completes the puzzle for them, so the US team do win, and it ends up with Kitty and Josh getting purged. And people are very shocked that Leroy and Cam aren't purged, where there is some wrecking allegations made that they kept Leroy and Cam because they had a better storyline compared to Kelly and Josh, but I don't know how true that is. Josh does have a very teary confessional full of regret about this, and I will say that Katie played a very good political game, as she was one of the main people controlling her alliance, and she connected the UK side to the US side with her connections on the UK and her friendship with Cam. She did have her drama with Jordan, but Katie still isn't a good competitor, which bit her in the butt at the purge. I do think it was best that this was her last season, since she really didn't have anything else to offer, but it seemed like she just kind of wanted to mature. It was fun seeing Josh and Rogan actually play a season together, and I did like their dynamic with one another. Josh was still not really interesting himself, but he had some decent moments throughout the season, though targeting Jordan was stupid. At the same time, I don't think it's as bad as people made it out to be, since if he doesn't get purged immediately here, he probably wins the season. Ultimately, I am fine with him not coming back, and I think at this point, as I'm recording this, it is a mutual choice. Supposedly, they stopped speaking to Lilith, or at least from what I read somewhere, and Josh was seen as boring, so the show stopped calling him after a few seasons, and then he started making more money off the show, so he doesn't want to come back, and he feels like he was screwed. Ninja is the speaker because she knows that it is about numbers, not performance, where she chooses Zack and Ashley, i.e., the best pair on the team, to join her in the tribunal. Polly speaks to his War of the Worlds partner, where he wants Josh to be sent home, and Ninja wants to get at Roken for what he did to Dee. And Polly tells her that she can make her own decision, which I thought was nice. Roken sees Josh's note on his bed, and he said that they can't run the final together. Polly tells Cara Maria that she needs to learn how to breathe while she is swimming, and thinks that she is ridiculous at times, where she's just tired and doesn't want to get into it with her boyfriend, where the environment is just stressful. And it's interesting that Cara Maria's swimming has not changed whatsoever 5 years after this, and she's been doing the show for a decade by the time of 34. Rogan and Dee seemingly hush it out, despite her not being the worst swimmer ever, but she still feels bad for Rogan due to losing Joss, but she wants to know the details about the plan, though it's really pointless now, where Rogan blames it all on Joss, since he's gone now and it's just easy to do. Jordan is easily nominated, and Dee makes a speech about how people downing her was a mistake, and Jordan pitches to the tribunal where Ninja wants him to apologize for his behavior in the house, which is why his girlfriend and him are in the position they are in, and Jordan refuses to do so. And I do agree with Zach about how it really doesn't matter at this point. Jordan does want to face Rogan in the elimination, and he's in good spirits. Nani is warming up to Leroy and Cam as a couple, so things are good with all of them, and Rogan likes CT and T as Brits, which was very funny. Nani thanks Josh because if it wasn't for him in the challenge, she would be on a flight back to New York doing the purge, and they're grateful for their friendship. Polly is complaining about his girlfriend's swimming to Rogan and CT, since he's annoyed that she doesn't believe in herself, despite winning twice on the show, as she was screaming instead of just relaxing during the challenge. Josh is thrown into the elimination by the tribunal, where he and Jordan play in End of the Rope, where they have to pull 100 feet of rope where it will get tight at some point, where they have to get all the rope on the side, or to get their partner to fall 3 times. Despite Jordan having one hand, he washes Josh in this elimination. Honestly, it is Josh's fault why his game went the way it did. And he would have most likely made it to the finals had he not turned on Polly and made that move against Wes, where, as I am recording this, he has still not made it to a final, 5 years after the season even took place. Josh is a good swimmer, and he might have helped them in the carrying portion of the final, but his politics was awful. He was too emotional and was getting mad at people for doing the exact same thing that he did to himself. And it's crazy that the same members who are complaining about Josh doing the stuff on 40, but were fine doing it, or fine with him doing it here this season. But he is one of the few War of the Worlds people who was able to make it out the War of the Worlds and Total Madness trilogy of some sort, so he did something right. Cara Maria feels great to be aligned with a bunch of strong, assured women, and Nani is trying to stay positive, since all the other women on her team are working together, and she only has Leroy and Zach now. CT and Tori are arguing about how he is going to vote her in, as she and Jordan made their bets, where Jordan and Tori mentioned that they are great competitors, who are going to help them in the final. Rogan and Dee are sticking with their alliances, since they will get them to the final, though Jordan mentions that Dee's own alliance tried to get her sent in, which is fair. Polly feels like he has his first win in the bag. LMAO, we all know how that doesn't happen. Anyways, Mind the Craft is the daily where they have to pull themselves across the rope in a barrel to grab coins, while some of the other teammates are also swimming to get sauce, where they cut a rope that is attached to the opposing team. I actually do like the daily, and we have UK winning the daily, where CT realizes he needs to prioritize his team, where TJ tells the US that they have to nominate a woman right now, where Nani is voted into elimination, and the UK decides to form a tribunal, or they have to form a tribunal right now, where CT chooses Rogan and Tori to go into the tribunal, and they're keeping their team safe, which Zach is thrilled about, where he chants, "Fuck your numbers!" and Dee is pissed off, where Tori and Rogan choose Ashley, though CT votes in Ninja. Ashley is seething, where she will punch Rogan in the face and mentions, "I'm rich!" which she's mentioned a lot during this season and the little time she was on last season. TJ tells the rest of them that they're in the final, but the big alliance isn't safe, since Ashley is in danger and they couldn't protect her, where Ashley and Nani have to go with him to go into elimination. Of course, Polly is disappointed with CT, and Tori and Jordan cannot wait to start a family together. Polly wears sunglasses and a hat while talking to Rogan in some mafia move, where he confronts Rogan about the move and Rogan assures him that it was all CT. Rogan tells CT about the sunglasses thing and Polly's mafia eyes grilling him, though Rogan is glad that CT did what he did. Ashley and Nanny compete in the Run for Your Life elimination, or Exile, I should say, where they have to get two puzzle pieces from a box, run it to some platform far away, and do the same thing with the other two, and the first person to solve it wins the elimination. The elimination was decent enough, but Ashley does beat Nanny. Ashley stays on the US team, and her alliance is so that Ashley is back in the house. Of course, we have Zach, Jordan, and Tori complaining about the result. We have everyone talking about wanting to win the final and believing that they can win it. While I do get Nanny's frustrations with Leeway being on the other side of her, Nanny had a very entitled attitude throughout the season, and this entitlement will kind of continue throughout the rest of her second run on the show, where all she did was take, and not give, despite Leeway doing his best to protect her this season, and she did take advantage of him in prior seasons. She did get into a fair share of drama in the season, which was fun, and she wasn't boring at all, but I didn't like the hypocritical entitlement from her whatsoever. Everyone is talking about wanting to win and what they would do with it, and we have Polly talking about how he peaked at his best time and he has all the gas in the tank, so they're clearly setting up the pride before the hard fall. The teams have to pick up a gurney with relics and sandbags on it, and they have to go for laps, where there's a checkpoint after more than one lap, and they cannot switch players until they get to a checkpoint. The gurney cannot break, or they cannot carry the bags outside of the gurney, or else there will be a time penalty given, and they cannot tamper with their opponent's gurney. The first checkpoint is catapulting coconuts into a basket, and they have to get the coconuts in it. The UK is in the lead, though that switches a bit, where they then retake the lead after losing it briefly. A bunch of the bags in the US's gurney drops, and they make it to the second checkpoint, where it's a bunch of math equations. Kara is struggling in this portion, and Jordan feels vindicated about this, where a bunch of people are mad, though he says nothing about Dee and Rogan struggling, where Kara actually beats them. Zach decides to not carry since they're in the lead, but what they don't show is that Zach was actually suffering through kidney issues throughout the entire final, to the point where he had to stay in the hospital for a week after the final completed, where he almost died, but he obviously ended up living. But I think it's interesting that they showed Polly guessing out, but not Zach on the edit. But maybe it's because they didn't want to look negligent, I don't know. Or they just want to emphasize how bad Polly did. So, Zach wants Kara and Ninja to do it, which ends up being a mistake, since Ninja and Cara Maria are too short, and Polly is carrying at the front, and he is also a shorter man, so he's starting to fall. Zach feels vindicated about, this is why you carry strong people! Where Leroy and him are also carrying due to the second round, or carrying through the second round, where Polly is cracking under pressure, where the UK beats them again. CT knocks the US through the bushes, and Polly is wearing thin, since they are taking too many breaks, due to him, and he has heat stroke. The third checkpoint is an eating challenge, and they also have to get a coconut in the small bucket. At this checkpoint, you can see Polly turn green/yellow, and Ashley is over Carmia whining about the food, despite being a nighttime finalist, so she should be used to this by now. TJ stops the UK for CT tampering with the US's gurney, where they have to stall for 10 minutes. The US team break their rules, where some of the women carry the bags, which they're not supposed to do, and Zach goes on a rant, though Zach also ignores about what his alliance did to not keep the stronger people around. And Zach just whining and complaining like a baby isn't helping the team at all. And Polly ends up passing out. They want to move on, but he's insistent on going on, where honestly he should have been DQ'd. And Cara Maria is going to leave her boyfriend. Cameron and Ashley tell him that if he's out, he needs to stay out, or they will lose. But the first part of the final ends with him passing out again. Zach is pissed off that he and Leroy are carrying the gurney, since Cara and Ninja have been useless in the final, and Polly is now useless. Checkpoint 4 is solving the pyramid puzzle, where they have to use the geometric figures to solve the puzzle. The gurney of the US is completely destroyed at this point, where they have to break the rules to get it across, where Zach now wants to quit. And I already talked about his kidney issues here. The UK ends up timing out of the checkpoint, but Polly solves it easily for his team, so he's okay enough to do that. And I guess this part is impressive, despite him guessing out earlier. UK has to get to their boat where they eat and relax, and the US is arguing about carrying the gurney, where Kara and Ninja are struggling. And I do give Leroy and Cam a lot of props for doing their part and not complaining much. Honestly, the same thing with Ashley too. The US are penalized for all of their rule breaking, but they finally get onto their boat, and a bunch of them are literally heading to Polly, where they land on another island to rest for the night. The resting point is at an all-night portion of the final, where they are sleeping on some sort of stairs and a pit where snakes are running rampant. So one person per team can even use the bed, while the rest have to stand. Polly is trying to not throw up, since he knows that he will be DQ'd by production otherwise. It is the morning, and they all have to individually complete a puzzle, and then they have to swim to their boat where only 4 from each team will make it, meaning 3 US people and 1 UK person will be purged. So, in order, Ninja, CT, D, Broken, Carmaria, Polly, Zach, and Jordan all make it through, with Tori, Leroy, Cam, and Ashley being purged. And I do understand the disappointment from all 4 of them, since Ashley, Leroy, and Cam did their thing on day 1. They weren't useless, and they did the least complaining, and Tori really held her own in the season. It was nice seeing Leroy and Cam get back together this season after how turbulent things were between them last season, and they are now engaged with 2 children. They had the tiff with Nanny, which was kind of interesting, and Leroy had to defend himself with Bananas being booted here, and he got a lot more involved in the politics of the season, which I was proud of him for. I do think the season is Cam's best showing politically, and no one considered her a weak competitor throughout the season, so it's a shame that neither one of them could get to the final 4, despite being the MVPs of day 1. Ashley went from being the first boot last season after making one of the most cutthroat moves in the show's history to aligning with a group of people that she wasn't even close to a year ago, while still being self-preserving and actually winning an elimination. I found her commentary to be great this season, though we know her luck will turn around negatively very soon, where she does suffer the consequences for how she played this season in the next few seasons. So, Tori definitely had a redeeming breakout season here after her disappointing sophomore season. She won several eliminations against tough competition, was very fiery, had a great underdog run, and got into some drama in the season as well, though you could tell that the corniness in her is still there. It sucks that she missed the win due to the purge, but we know she won't be anywhere near as liked after this from a fan point of view, as she goes through a rocky period right after this throughout the next few seasons, kind of like Ashley does, but for different reasons. They have to attach themselves to the change, where they then have to race around the 6-mile island, complete a puzzle, and then go onto the kayak where they go on the boat, and the first team that gets to the end wins the season. Both teams time out of the puzzle where the US get on the kayaks, and when the US gets on the kayaks, the UK is already halfway across, where the UK ends up winning the season, and Rogan is thrilled to be the first Brits to win, and of course the US people don't take this well. It's crazy that some of the men, like Zach and Jordan, saw Carmaria as one of the weaker women that needed to be taken out. And while her swimming wasn't good, as she did freak out, I do think some of it was kind of unnecessary. Anyways, it seemed like Kara owned being a complete villain this season and relevant in it, having a solid alliance with like-minded people and making jokes about Jordan and Tori's engagement. It's really a shame that she went AWOL on production because they were over Polly, and she tried to leverage her position as the face of the show to get him on Total Manners, only for her to be kept off the show for 3 to 4 years herself, where she didn't handle it well, but luckily this isn't the end for her. I remember during prior watches that I never really saw why Ninja/Natalie was seen as a weak player, but it makes more sense this season, as she doesn't do well in team environments, her swimming is piss poor, and she really wasn't helpful much. She didn't offer much to the show, but I'm fine with this being with the final season, though it might have been due to some problematic tweets of hers as well. If anyone watched Polly on Big Brother, you would know that he's good politically, and I do think this is his best political showing this season. He was often right about what he said, especially about Josh, Bananas, Laura, and etc., and you can see how personally he takes it when people turn on him or he doesn't feel accepted by them. He bragged himself up all season and acted like he was the best ever, only to flame out on day 1. He continued his ratchet behavior on social media, which caused him to be off the show for years, and while he has came back to the show recently, his showings have been extremely poor. It's crazy that... Essentially, Polly lost all momentum, he's struggling to getting back, and he's failing. But we'll get more into that in the future. It's crazy that despite everything that Kara and Polly did that caused their hiatus, or during their hiatus, Zach hasn't been back at all. Especially when it could be argued that this was one of his most likable showings, though I think it's because there was no relationship drama. He performed well in the challenges and had some good confessionals, but his temper tantrums over not getting what he wanted, and his hypocrisy was definitely poor. Apparently, he and production had some sort of fallout where Justin Booth refuses to have him on the show now, though Zach wants to be back on the show. But he's hosting a very successful podcast of The Challenge, where many see it as the best challenge podcast, so maybe that's his calling. It's clear that at this point in his life and career, CT isn't going to be the explosive person he was on earlier seasons, at least for the most part, but being booted early on his last 2 seasons really shook him. He played a very good floater game, and it's crazy that there's such a thing on the challenge when that's a Big Brother term, and it worked out for him where he got his third win. He still had his funny, intense moments, which I can't say for some of his seasons after this. Despite being the season that Dee won, I do think that this is her least impressive season from a gameplay point of view, where she was not considered one of the stronger women, but she did prove her worth at the end. She had a showmatch with Rogan that brought a lot of mess, and she kind of fulfilled the quote-unquote need to prove herself arc that lasted this season and started last season. Unfortunately, she let this season get to her head, which we'll definitely talk about next season. Jordan oftentimes has the right thoughts and talking points, but the way he says things gets him into a lot of trouble, especially this season. But it brought a fire out of him that was very entertaining to watch, where he went into several eliminations, turncoated, and trolled some of the people, where this was arguably his most impressive win from a competitive and entertainment point of view. But you can tell that the pressure from this season affected him and Tori next season. I thoroughly enjoyed Rogan this season, where he put in the work to improve his physicality so a vendettas wouldn't happen, played a really good political game, was self-aware of his strengths and weaknesses, and was unashamed of trying to stay out of elimination. He was cutthroat, entertaining, and had his feuds throughout the season, and he will continue this momentum onto next season. We are at the reunion, and we learn about Thea's eye injury post-season. They get right to the final, where of course Rogan is thrilled about being the first boot to winner, or that's his trajectory. Dee is glad that she beats people's expectations, and they move on to Polly guessing out, where he talked about training to run, but he didn't train for the heat. Bananas cut in to make fun of him for guessing out and causing the US to lose, and the couple mentioned that Bananas was out week 2 this season, and Bananas talks about having the most wins. Bananas just inserting himself, just really annoying. Kara mentions that she was the one who lost it for them in the puzzle, where Polly and Zach pushed through, even though their bodies were giving out. And honestly, it took me until after watching the reunion and taking my notes to notice that Zach wasn't at the reunion. So I'm assuming this might have had to do with the black ball that was taking place, though there's really no reason why he shouldn't have been at the reunion, since 1, he would have gotten paid, and 2, he's a finalist. But I just found that to be interesting. Cam mentions that the guys should have carried the entire time. That was her regret about it. And Ashley talks about how she, Cam, and Leroy did the most carrying. Josh decides to unnecessarily pop in, and Polly makes fun of him for being a shitty competitor. Polly commented on Instagram that Jenny and Bananas fucked in the bathroom, and this allegation between the two of them would kind of carry over into next season, though they both deny it and they are in happy relationships, which is ironic because Morgan blasted Bananas for cheating since then, and she also told Polly recently that Bananas got him off next season due to the reunion. Kara and Nany argue since Cara Maria attacks her personally, and Cara Maria says that all Nany did was drink and smoke in the season, where Jordan pipes in to say that Nany was in the gym at 7 a.m. every day, unlike Cara's crew, though I do remember Leroy saying the exact opposite in one of the episodes on the season, so who knows what's happening. Josh mentions that Polly raised Cara's coattails, choked in 3 finals. Polly was only in 2 finals since he was purged before the final on World War 1, and Josh still has not made it to the final as I'm recording this after being on for 6 years, so he should probably just pipe the fuck down with this. And Polly makes fun of Josh for crying. Polly cries just as much as Josh, so he should pipe down on this as well. And we would see him crying because he finally got Bananas' approval on USA too, so pot calling the kettle black. Polly mentions that Johnny and Wes should have worked together, and Johnny mentions that their team had too much baggage to work together, and the cult wanted to work as a team until things went into their favor. Wes appears via video chat, and he apologizes to Laura and Josh for the fans bullying Josh on Twitter. Wes literally did this for another situation, as I am typing this like a day or 2 ago. Josh and Polly's fault is discussed, where Johnny is upset that he disrespected him, though Polly disrespected Josh. Sorry, Josh disrespected Polly first, and Polly mentions that he got all of his alliance to the end, and all Polly said that Josh is emotional, though Polly's just as emotional, so I don't know why he's calling that out. And Polly thinks that stealing the truth isn't calling one another, and they are yelling at one another. Polly ends up doing some Bruno Mars / Michael Jackson dance, which is just very cringy to watch. Everyone is gassing up Josh up and acting like Polly is in the situation. Polly says that he misses their friendship, but he's fine without it. There was some sort of altercation before the reunion, if I remember correctly, that had a lot of the cast worried about Polly being physical, though at the same time, they also mentioned that he talks with security around, so I don't know how someone who talks with security around but not doing anything is all of a sudden threatening. But Polly really just put the rope around his neck and caused him to hang himself. Tori and Jordan's engagement is discussed, and he is shocked that it didn't come out since Nanny found the ring week 1, and Thea also saw the ring as well. Polly was being the bigger person, and Carmela mentions that the others would have done the same thing if she and Polly got engaged, and Carmela was glad that engagement happened, since she actually got peace and quiet that night, which is rare in the challenge house. But she is not fake, so she didn't go. Tori is actually offended that Carmela accused them of being actors, and Polly gives Tori credit for being from one cheater, i.e. himself, to another Tori, showing that people that cheat can get engaged, and people saw that as a jab, though he was also jabbing at himself. But yeah, he used that to throw a little bit of shade, even if he had to shade himself. Ninja and Laura is discussed, and they made the same mistake with the missing call, but apparently Theo called it out. Ninja didn't like Laura gloating, though Ninja was gloating herself before the elimination as well, which is fair for Laura to point out. Kara and Laura's fallout is discussed, where Kara mentions that Laura wanting to be in her life when she's inferior, so Laura can control her, or Laura has a crush on her, and Laura mentions that Carmela is exhausting and was in a toxic relationship, i.e. Abram, that she didn't enjoy, but she is not sexually attracted to Carmela, and she mentions that the friendship is forced. Laura mentions that she is open to talking things out with Carmela, and Carmela says that there's no hatred between them, but we know things are not good with them at all, and it will only get worse with All Stars 4 and Battle of the Eras. Dee and Rogan's relationship is discussed, and he was shocked when she said that she loved him, but it was revealed that he ditched her when the cast hung out for a few weeks after the final, where Dee was with Georgia and Kyle exposes that Rogan wanted Nanny. Kyle asks if they could hook up on another season, i.e. Dee and Rogan, though they end up doing it on Total Madness, and there's a deleted scene where Polly asks Rogan what's up with the relationship, and Rogan says that he's bored with Dee, he's here for fun, and he wants Nanny. Dee rants about Polly and Rogan talking shit about her like that, and she shouldn't have fallen for a stripper. Rogan gives a weak-ass apology, and he mentions that he stayed with her the entire time, despite getting out of a relationship. Polly mentions that the conversation happened very early on, and he didn't know Rogan well, or Dee and Rogan's dynamic, but things clearly change, and Bananas unnecessarily chimes in. Nanny mentioned that Rogan slid into her DMs before the season, but he hooked up with Dee the first night, and they never spoke in the house, i.e. her and Rogan never spoke in the house. Theo talks about how he has love and respect for Polly, and he says that he's a good kisser. This will continue on Battle of the Eras, and Carmela doesn't think that women should attack men, knowing that men can't hit her back, which I actually agree with, and we saw this discussion in relation to Nanny and Polly's fight early on in the season. Carmela mentioned that Nanny wants to fuck Polly. Polly and Nanny agree that they are on good terms, and Nanny mentions that Polly has spoken about his own girlfriend. Turbo and Jordan is discussed, and Jordan talks about how Turbo kicking the tool was so they could vote, and he didn't intend on sending Turbo home. Josh mentions that Turbo has a language barrier where Polly and him, i.e. Josh, interpreted for Turbo. Jordan mentions that Turbo should be able to handle the shit-talking without violence, like he and Polly can, and Tori was going to defend her man no matter what. Nanny thinks that the others manipulated Turbo in the situation, but he didn't overreact, and we know that things turned sour between Nanny and Turbo on Ride or Dies. But Jordan wants to compete with Turbo again, and it's really a shame, and it's really annoying that Turbo was eliminated on Ride or Dies right before Jordan arrived. Cam anyway is discussed, and she was not expecting them to speak at all, but them being in the same alliance and room got them to finally get their closure, which opened the door for a relationship where they are really good friends, but it's clear that they're also hooking up. Bear's hooking up is discussed, and Laurel knew that Bear wasn't anything to be taken seriously. Apparently, Katie and Bear were exes. Bear apparently has a girlfriend, but there was some alleged hookup attempt with Georgia last night. Kaylee mentions that she heard Bear was talking about her, and Georgia mentions that Kaylee actually reached out to her, and they're good now since Kaylee messaged Georgia about getting, well, because she was worried that Georgia was getting too deep in this bad hole of reality TV. And it does seem like Kaylee is maturing, and I actually do give her props about this. I don't care about the Georgia and Josh thing, so moving right on, though they apparently kissed last night. Kara's cult is discussed, and Bananas didn't care about Leroy working with Polly after he left, where Georgia mentions that the alliteration of the name sounded nice, which is why she called it Kara's cult. Kara mentions that they weren't a cult but a family, where every person in the lines had a voice, and Cam gives Polly credit for being a good leader. And it's interesting because we all know that Cara, Maria, and Cam had a fallout on All Stars 4, and they didn't speak for a while. I don't even know if they are on good terms right now, though they are good with their partners, i.e. Cam being good with Polly, and Maria being good with Leroy, and Polly and Leroy being good. But that's kind of just besides the point. Jordan mentions that their alliance lost in the final, so they were team layup, and Cam asks if Tori was a layup as well, since she also lost. Jordan mentions that Tori won eliminations. The alliance mentioned that 3 of their members won the season, and Katie also defends Polly as a leader and ally. Ashley is shocked that she became friends with Kara, despite the history, and Annie and Josh call her out for trashing Kara's performance throughout the season. Jordan's intense and to some awful personality is discussed, and he mentions that it was just a job, and Ninja gets really emotional over it, since she doesn't get the hate that he brings to the show, and people think that she's too oversensitive, where Jordan feels like Ninja is assassinating his character by saying that he brings hate, where Tori is actually trying to get him to see the other's perspective. Bananas calls Ninja a hypocrite due to her flipping on top last season, and Dee ends up defending Jordan here. And that's really it for the reunion. So, here are my concluding thoughts on the season. It's really sad that the season is kind of the last of its kind. It's really the last season that has a whole lot of drama actually shown on the episodes, or it's one of the last very, very dramatic seasons. I do think that the veteran cast was very, very, very strong, which would be one of the last times that I can say that for a season. They all had their drama, they all had their politics, they were all memorable in their own way. Like I mentioned before, I do think the rookie cast is some of the weakest, especially in Era 4, which is a huge problem and it's one of my main flaws of the season. It was definitely a more tense and dramatic season, but it wasn't really toxic to the point where it's unwatchable. And it was really nice to have a team season for once, where I think this and Battle of the Seasons 2 is the last time that there's a team season from the very beginning to the very end. And from, I think, Spy Slice and Allies onwards, there'll be a lot of switching formats, which is another issue that I have with the era. So it's clear that they've been trying to build up the UK group for the last 4 seasons up to this point, and this would really be the last season that had a strong UK prominence, where in next season they will go back to casting mainly American rookies. So it seemed like they realized that the rookies this season were kind of flops. So some of the UK people and the world people would make it onto next season, but that'll be last season for many of them, and we'll talk more about that on Total Madness. And this also came before the 2020s, where a lot of political stuff kind of changed how the challenge was produced and aired, which has a lot of cons to it. A lot of, I don't know, the vibe of the show just changed after the season, and definitely not for the better. I do think that the casting definitely got worse, not just with the rookies, or at least, no, I think 35 is like the last strong rookie cast, my bad. But after that, it goes off the wall. But I think this is one of the last casts that has a good veteran cast, which is something that I really can't say for many of the seasons after this, especially with casting from the same group over and over and over and over again. So yeah, I definitely see this as one of the best seasons of the series for sure, and you pick up more and more from it as you rewatch it, which is something that I really cannot say for a lot of the other seasons. So while I was expecting this review to be long, it wasn't too long, so I'm kind of proud of that. I don't know how the 90-minute episodes will affect how long the reviews are for all the seasons after this. I don't know if many of them will reach the 2 hour mark, kind of like how this season did, but that'll be interesting to kind of point out and to take note. A lot of people were put on pause or retirement after the season, and due to the fact that many of the people from the season made it to the end or made it close to the end and didn't go into elimination, would definitely cause a change with the producers since a lot of the fans complained about it, and we'd have the skull twist that was introduced in the next 2 seasons, which definitely made Total Madness and Double Agent a lot worse, where they should have just left it alone. But yeah, I really don't have anything else to say. This season was a blast to watch, and I think it's one of the seasons in Era 4 that aged really, really, really well. The things about the season that were referenced on Battle of the Eras, which I really couldn't say about a lot of the other early Era 4 seasons. So I do think that this season overall has aged well, where I actually think War of the Worlds 1 aged pretty poorly in comparison. So I think that's one of the reasons why I like this season more. Anyways, thank you all for watching, and I'll be back soon with more content. Bye.